American Visionary Arts Museum in Baltimore is a unique institution and has been a smash hit. I could attempt to explain it to you thank you very much, for those of you who have not been there, but we will turn for that to our next presenter, Rebecca Hoffberger.
Well, hello, my fellow and kindred spirits. Every single one of you an addict like me to fresh thought. So welcome. The Swiss visionary artist Louis Suter said, "If the impossible exists, I'm on its track." Rumi, the great poet, the first dervish, 800 years ago said, "Conventional thinking is the ruin of our souls. Something borrowed, we mistake as our own." Michael Faraday, the inventor of the electric motor, he put it, "Nothing is too wonderful to be true." And Hot Mama Mae West said, "Too much of a good thing is wonderful." That said, I think it's worth to give a nod to the TED conference. No one has ever brought up that I've seen that they were birthed in 1984, that year, that infamous year of the Orwellian dark prophecy for what technology could do to us, and Big Brother, etc. And I think it was conceived as some wonderful grand-scale, broad-spectrum antidote to Orwellian prophecy. That said, we are here in a story, all of us today, and I would like to speak to you about why museums are called museums and not thingatoriums or objectagons. Muse, that inspiration that's not tangible, that goes beyond conscious thought, the reason that scientists take naps to come up with answers to problems that plague them, or many of us, how many of you in the shower have gotten some of your very best ideas? A show of hands. I think that we use this other way of negotiating reality. The American Visionary Art Museum I founded really as a place like this, that we could have this marvelous scam, in a way, to call up anybody we ever remotely admired, or even read in a book from someone who lived as long ago as Archimedes, and be able to take the treasure of that which nourishes our soul and fold out a huge buffet, and to bring in people who were not doing things from learned at-the-knee traditions, but who, within their own process of listening within, had thought profound thoughts on these same grand themes and put it all together. So we have this sense of quest for the impossible possibilities. We have passion, we have wonder, and indeed museums at their very best, at the very beginning, were celebrations of the wonder of how amazing this world was. There was flora and fauna, and the things made by the hand of the divine, so to speak. And then the things that flowed, as visionary artist Lani Halley put it, just let it leak from your eyes and your heart and your hands, and then it is art. There were things from people we discovered that they made silks and textiles and manuscripts and china and things that we never thought about, and it gave us an appreciation for how huge the banquet of what it is to be a human being truly is. Now we can look backwards and mine that brilliance from so long ago, and we can fight the sense of the narrowing of possibility that was just so beautifully spoken of with the downside of modern life. I'm going to try to do this. "Oh, say can you see," the very first line of our national anthem, and I thought very presciently written right at the harbor, right near where our museum exist, and it says, "Oh, say, can you see?" And the next building says love. And of course, all the most important things in life are not things. It's those things, those experiences that go beyond words. The walls. I think all of us have institutions that with a slight shift of consciousness can indeed be places that we entrance, that just don't have ways of getting in. The walls that glow and the jewelry that I'm wearing come from the largest youth at-risk apprenticeship program ever undertaken in the United States. So if you're a klutz and you break your dishes, that's good for us. Please bring them down to us. And the mirror are free all the time at glass companies. And we have apprenticed at first the high school students from the Southern High School that had a dropout rate of 72%. And now that that's become digital high and took out their shop, we work with children from the juvenile detention system. The most important thing for us all to know is that 90% of the children who are in virtual mini jail in the juvenile detention system are 90% are in for non-violent crime. So working with them has been such a privilege. The great sadness that the Annie E. Casey Foundation has discovered that the average child in Baltimore City moves in the first, before they get to high school, an average of 8 times. So there's a lot of impermanence. What we wanted was not busy work, but some way that they could come and take their children and their children's children to see what they did. They also learned to make pretty great jewelry. The walls that reflect this light instead of shadow are a metaphor for the beauty of our community. The people, the joggers who see themselves in it, but the kids who put it together. The children who give us a certain amount of minimum hours in learning to do this teamwork that makes the walls coherent swirls of the universe. They get lifetime apprenticeship, membership to the museum. And so many of them have come back now that we're turning 14. All around the world, cobalt blue glass is known as Baltimore glass because Bromo Seltzer and Noxzema were made here for over 100 years. Noxzema was discovered right here, and the word really comes from what one of Bunting's, the pharmacist clients, raved about: no eczema when you use it, Noxzema. But going way back into our past, Da Vinci made himself cobalt blue glasses, much like John Lennon did, to wear because he felt that that blue light put him in an altered state, ideal for invention. So all of the walls of our classrooms are lined in the bottoms of Noxzema jars. Oh, I'll go back. The cosmic galaxy egg, there for anyone to hug. The great gift of the Hubble telescope to the whole world, available online, is the beautiful images from the deep recesses of space, of dying galaxies and birthing new stars. And we have it outside. And there's a little interesting story about this. I was really mad because it was 3 weeks late in arriving, this cosmic galaxy egg, of our opening of our Jim Rouse Visionary Center. And I didn't know what else to do. And finally it arrived. And the news that morning was Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has just dropped dead. And I was a great friend to Dr. Kubler-Ross, the great person on death and dying, and herself. And her last words, the news report came out, "I'm going to go dancing throughout all the galaxies." So that day, the egg for me, that is Elizabeth's egg. I wanted to say I never thought I was going to go into the museum world. I really had some great experiences with museums, but I wanted to be much more about ideas than things. As a kid, my love was science and humor and nature and being alone in the woods, and I had Mexican jumping beans, and of course I had to crack them open to figure out why they jumped, and it's like this little furry worm. And I love lightning bugs. We were all involved in the 50s and 60s in catching them because somebody told us that Hopkins would pay us a penny apiece. And so it kept us, busy in the summers. I don't think anybody ever went to redeem them, but it made us feel like we were working or something. But all of these glowing aspects, were something I loved. And I'll tell you two quick experiences. My parents took me to the Franklin Institute, and the Franklin Institute actually had this, a model of the heart, and it glowed red, and you walk through it, and you heard boom, 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 boom. It was really impressive when you're 5 years old. It was unbelievable. And then, I never forgot that. So I went back, when I was in my 30s, and it was still there. And it was such a piece of, what? It had this red bulb, bare on a wire hanging down, a red little screw-in light bulb, and it was all chipped, plaster. And I'm sure, because they're wonderful things at the Franklin Institute, they could have well afforded to buy this perfect, anatomically correct kind of plasticized giant model of a heart, and they didn't. And I love that because it made me realize the power of illusion and suggestion and how marvelous and entrancing that experience was. The other, and we're going to talk about fallacies on the web. I am here to swear to you by all that is good that indeed I was one of the many, many children who were put in a bus and taken to the Smithsonian, the part of the Smithsonian which was medical oddities that is no longer there. It's where the Hirshhorn now stands. And it was the most interesting experience because you got in there and this room that was filled with formaldehyde. So the smell of it was like something you can't even imagine. And as a little kid, it was choking and all this dust. And there were beakers and there were two-headed pig fetuses. And then there was this big beaker that had an elephantitis leg, a person who had an elephantitis their leg in it. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, when something goes wrong with your body, do they lop it off and put it in a museum? That was scary. But next to it was, and you will Google it tonight, was indeed the genitalia of Dillinger. And that, and if you think I could be, they say that's a myth on the, it was not a myth, I am telling you. He wasn't just the biggest gun at that time either. I actually met another museum director, Nancy Brennan, the daughter of the Chief Justice, who said, I had that experience too. So there's two of us who can, bust that. But what did that implant? That there's something... that there is something about Muse, this place of incredible inspiration, museums, that can get away with a lot, okay? And and I just, even then I thought oh my gosh, my school thinks this is an enriching thing to get on a bus to go see. Cool. But that said, I think the great idea is how we can move from thinking of museums, which all need money now. So what you have is you have very wealthy collectors who in many instances have been advised by art advisors, like you would put together a stock portfolio. Oh, you like this and you collect this, you must have 3 of this artist and 4 of these and 2 of that to have a worthwhile collection. So it's kind of this more mental, like a stock portfolio process that's going on, and then they give money to the museum, and the museum says, oh, thank you, and we'll show your stuff and everything. And there's this marketplace thing that happens. Not that work might not be terrific, but there's this one remove from inspiration thing that is happening that's very sad. I really love that, again, just like the TED conference. Can you imagine thinking up the TED thing, and you can just think, who would I like to talk to? Who would I like to know? Who do I admire? And just keep on, setting that up, that relationship, and then sharing it. Well, that's what we do at the museum. I wanted to say to you that in our 10th anniversary, this is kind of like our formula that I think can apply to many things. We pick one grand theme every year that's not object-oriented, that is a spiritual theme, a big one. And for our 10th anniversary, we looked at the notion of character. but it was called Race, Class, and Gender. 3 things that contribute 0 to character, because being a schmuck is an equal opportunity for everybody, you know? And we were able to say, oh my gosh, Archbishop Tutu, what you wrote as a heterosexual Episcopalian Nobel Prize winning clergy about advocacy for full gay rights was so moving. Can we work with you? Can we put your words up? And he came, and he had a cold, and he was battling a little bit of his cancer, although it's pretty stable. And he just, at first he was kind of crappy when he came there because he didn't feel well, and then he started to cry. And then he danced that night with us, and he made sure his 2 daughters came with their husband. And guess who we had there? Rosie O'Donnell, too, because she was also looking to support this liberation of what it is to be a human being in the fullest spectrum. So you saw Peter Agre earlier today when we did a show, and again, our shows stay up for 11 months, so we can do that rich programming. We had a show called Holy H2O, Fluid Universe. What happened? We opened it in the fall of 2004. More Class 5 storms than in recorded history. Then the tsunami, the biggest water story. And the last week of Holy H2O as an exhibition was the Katrina. And who won the Nobel Prize right here from Baltimore? For what? How water is transported cell to cell, but Dr. Peter Agre. So, you know, this is such an amazing world we live in, and there are so many people hungry to be your kindred spirit as well. So don't at all hold back from calling people. And even if they say no now, there's always a time that can come around, or they direct you to someone else. So life is such a feast. In the words, again, of the poet Rumi, and we did do this large Rumi festival as part of the lead up to our show on the nature of belief, all faiths beautiful, from atheism to Zoroastrianism, respect for diversity of belief. In dedicating it to Rumi, I think he said the best thing of all. He said, sell your cleverness and purchase wonder. Thank you all. Take 1 minute. Thank you.